Today USA newspaper presenting latest breaking news Trump attack border deal now Chris Murphy speaks with press to answer Donald Trump what he said. Let's take a look on this report. When a reporter asked about is Trump effectively killed these negotiations? The reporter asked the question, has Donald Trump effectively killed these negotiations? In a news report, Chris Murphy said, we have the outlines of a deal, we've had it for several days, it's 90+% written. I don't know what's happening inside the Republican conference right now. I know there's a faction that thinks it's better to do nothing on the border for political gain, but I still think there is a big group of Republicans that wants to help solve the problem at the border as Joe Biden does, as Democrats do, so my hope is that. Then Chris Murphy said, we are going to be able to move forward with legislation that funds Ukraine and gives the president new tools to deal with the crisis at the border, and we do that in a bipartisan way. I really hope that the faction of Republicans that does not want to solve the problem at the border because they want this to be a perpetual political issue don't win out, and I think we will find out the answer to that question over the course of today and tomorrow. The reporter asked a question about yesterday's conference. What the reporter asked, Momentum told his conference yesterday. How did you interpret all that? In a news report, Chris Murphy said, well, we are still working today on writing those final bits of text. My belief is that we can still get this package to the floor, and that would be good for the country. It would be good for the country if we could come together, Republicans and Democrats, around changes in border and immigration policy that try to reduce the chaos that Americans see. Then Chris Murphy said, I know there is a group of Republicans that just wants to keep this issue open, that wants to keep chaos at the border in order to exploit that politically, but I still believe that there's enough Republicans to join with Democrats to do something together. The reporter asked another question about your momentum in trying to get a deal. The reporter asked, but do you think this has blunted your momentum in trying to get a deal? In a news report, Chris Murphy said, we will find out the answer to that in the next 24 to 48 hours. I hope we don't live in a world today in which one person inside the Republican Party holds so much power that they could stop a bipartisan bill to try to give the president additional power at the border to make more sense of our immigration policy. I would hope that one person isn't so powerful inside the Republican Party hands Ukraine to Vladimir Putin, but we'll find out the answer to that. I'm just going to keep my head down. I'm working with partners who want a deal. There are a lot of Republican senators who want a bipartisan agreement, and I am going to be rooting for them to win this argument over the course of the rest of. The reporter asked another question about he needs a majority of his minority. The reporter asked, is part of the problem that not a majority of his conference supports this? Yes, you can probably get to 60 votes and pluck off in 15, maybe 20, however many Republicans might be for this border deal, but that's the probably he needs a majority of his minority. In a news report, Chris Murphy said, listen, I can't speak for how the Republican conference approaches this issue. I hope that when they get a chance to look at this agreement, that the majority of that conference will support it. I think the majority of Democrats will support it, but we've always known that in order to make a big step forward on immigration and border policy, we were likely not going to get every Republican vote, nor were we going to get every Democratic vote. Then he said, so it's not as if this issue doesn't have fissures inside the Democratic Party. It does. We just believe that it is so important to try to fund Ukraine, and it is so important to try to make sense of the border that we are willing to live with the uncomfortableness of in-party division. One wish Republicans would be able to do the same. The reporter asked questions of Chris Murphy about Trump's opposition. The reporter asked, have you seen a difference? Have you seen any change in Senator Lankford's approach to your negotiations amid Trump's opposition? Chris Murphy said, I have not. Senator Lankford continues to work with us to try to write the last bits of text. As I've said, we've had a broad agreement for a number of days, and we're in the process of finalizing that text. Are you guys? The reporter questioned a meeting today. Chris Murphy's answer, we have been constantly leading and talking. The reporter questions, is it a mistake to maybe have held the ball so closely because then people interpret things into what they believe is there, or try to kill necessarily from the other side if they're trying to kill out? Then Chris Murphy said, well, we briefed our caucuses 2 weeks ago on the outlines of the agreement, and we've been in non-stop discussions with our caucus members since then about this agreement. I think as we have briefed more members about the status of these talks, you have obviously seen on the Republican side more members try to blow it up because there is a faction inside the Republican conference. Then he said, that looks at this agreement knows that it actually will have an impact at the border, knows that it actually will fix a broken asylum system and doesn't want that. That's the reality. There are a group of Republicans that don't want to fix this problem. That we're talking about would fix a big part of our broken immigration system, but I'm just going to say to you again, I am not giving up. I believe that there are still enough Republicans who actually are sincere about fixing the problem. That we can get this done. Maybe I am totally naive, maybe I am gullible, maybe I don't understand this place, but I can't show up for work every day without a belief that there's still just enough Republicans and Democrats that actually want to solve problems. The reporter asked question to Chris Murphy about plans to move forward with a supplemental package. The reporter asked, Senator Schumer still has he indicated to you that he still plans to move forward with a supplemental package that includes Ukraine aid, Israel, Taiwan and the border, or has there been any change to his approach? Chris Murphy said, I don't think there's been any change, but I know he and Senator McConnell are talking frequently and working together on a schedule to bring a supplemental to the floor, but I can't speak for under Schumer. The reporter asked question to Chris Murphy about regular intervals. The reporter asked, I guess what I was getting at earlier about whether the text was going to be out or not. Tactically, would it have been better to maybe drip out a little bit of information even though you briefed everybody at these regular intervals here, so that some of that was out there versus maybe holding everything back and therefore people can divine what they think is in and blasting wood? Chris Murphy said, that has changed Donald Trump's mind. No, Donald Trump was going to be against any deal that makes a change at the border for the better, and I think that that's been true for a long time, but I still think we can get to the finish line here, and I'm going to work really hard to do that. For more updates, please subscribe our YouTube channel.